I've waited for an entire year to do this. The mysteries and rumors behind the name of the crying child from The Bite of 83 and Fnaf 4, it just varies all over the place. And some say that his name was Evan Afton. But I despised that name. And yet I still despise it for this kid over here, because I have always resented that. Maybe Evan belonged to a different kind of character in the Fnaf franchise. Maybe that was someone that we already know. But I should know what the crying child's real name truly is. And that, my friends, is what we're going to talk about today. Sup my awesome mad lads, my name is Madog and welcome to Mad Theory. Now, this is the biggest Mad Theory episode that I'm ever going to be putting up. Depending how big it is the other question. So let's hope that I have gathered enough information, which I have. As we all know, based on the crying child for Five Nights at Freddy's 4, he is known to be the Bite of 83 victim, thanks to his brother Michael Afton, unless that is actually his surname is even called Afton. Because I've always had to have some kind of disagreement with the name Evan. Now, of course, the name Evan was basically found and discovered by using some kind of interesting method used in the Five Nights at Freddy's security logbooks. Now, you see me actually talk about that thing earlier from another video, this one right here. And I might actually be using some other things that I talked about, which could be the same evidence, but those evidence are going to be expanded upon to actually further explain why I feel like that this kid, real name, is not even called Evan Afton, but it could be a whole other different name from a whole other different family that you should also be very familiar with. So let's get straight to the point, because as you already know that I don't think that it's Evan. So my guess, and most accurate guess to any of these things, the name of the crying child in Fnaf 4 is actually Sammy. Sammy Emily. Now probably everyone, you're probably going crazy with what the heck you're saying. Well, it's not the first time I've said that, okay? Give me a break. Besides, I made a video on it before, and like I said, I will going to be using it to expand upon my evidence. So, to begin with all this, where exactly should we start in making all this theory? Well, let me tell you where I actually want to think about. And it's a pretty very common guess that everyone has been doing lately, so I've kind of went for the exact same route, but things are obviously going to be very different around here. We're going to be starting off talking about the family itself. In this video here, I actually talked about the members of the Afton family, and I've actually once talked about that perhaps maybe this was the family of Afton. But then I also took consideration about the whole other idea that in this video here, that maybe that this child belonged to the Henry Emily household. And this was actually based on one of MatPat's theories that he actually did talk about in one of his videos. And it's something that I really do feel like that he should have kept on going with it, instead of sticking to the exact same usual things that we've been talking about, that, oh, it's always the Afton family, but I always never thought it was. Not in my eyes anyways. And the only other way I could be able to talk about it is through some of the Silver Eyes trilogy novels, and also the minigame later that night. So first off, let's start off with the Midnight Motorist secret level later that night, shall we? As we all know, that we've already talked about this before, that we drive past a few areas like the mound of dirt on the ground, and also Junior's, and of course the household itself that is basically surrounded by a bunch of trees. We see an orange man coming out of that car. And of course, the car is purple, but does that really mean that, just because the car is purple doesn't mean it's William Afton? And Right Host also talked about something about, due to the fact that seeing that it's a better idea to make him orange instead of purple, because purple is a bit too dark and it kind of blends in with the rest of the screen. I mean, yeah, sure, you could consider it that way, but I tend to actually disagree, to be honest, in the most respectful way as possible, okay? Now hear me out. Let me tell you why. First off, let's go ahead and take a look at this orange man over here. The one that everyone keeps calling him William Afton. Due to the fact of his, the text on his thing written and his abusiveness when trying to call his son to open the door from his room. But is that really technically William Afton? What happens if it's actually Henry Emily? And this is the part where things are about to get crazy, because I don't think anyone has actually noticed this yet. First off, I started off with a bit of color inversions. Now, I've talked about color inversions before, that basically what colors are could be possibly the opposite of that exact color. Now, of course, I had to dig in some research for that one, so I've asked, what is the inversion of orange? And I got my answer. The inverted color for orange is actually blue, a cobalt and navy blue. So it kind of realized to myself, because that is nowhere near purple, not at all. So I then wondered to myself, what is the inversion color of purple then? I typed it up, searched for it, and the answer was green-yellow. Green-yellow is basically, well, a brighter version of green if you're mixing green with yellow to it, if you've ever seen the color wheel. It's technically considered to be a tertiary color. So yeah, there you have it. So basically, the inverted color of orange is actually blue, and as for purple, it's green-yellow. But don't forget, the green man in Juniors is actually pretty much green, but that doesn't really technically mean that, he's basically related to the purple guy. At least I don't think, because there's no way that could possibly happen. He just seems like an ordinary guy who's working at the bar. Simple, right? But now with that out of the way, I always wanted to figure to myself, who exactly does wear orange after all? And thanks to the Five Nights at Freddy's character encyclopedia, I got my answer. Take a look at Henry Emily in page 216 of the character encyclopedia. Look at closely at what color he's wearing.
Excuse me, what?
Yep. It's orange. I feel like this is something that a lot of people must have been misguided, and I feel like that Scott Cawthon was putting this in for a reason. This entire time, everyone has thought that maybe perhaps that this orange guy is actually William Afton, but maybe it's not. Maybe Scott Cawthon was trying to at least pull us in the right direction, but it seems like everyone just keeps on taking the exact same path everyone thought to believe. However, I've always stuck to my guns. And I've always figured for the very most time of my life that Henry is the one who is driving in that car. Now, of course, I'm not saying that, Henry is the one who killed his own daughter, because that's stupid. Why on earth would I actually think that? I don't necessarily think that just because that the car is purple in the Later That Night minigame doesn't mean that really technically takes place the same time that when, William Afton actually killed his daughter. I feel like it must have happened at a time exactly, or maybe some time after that happened. Maybe the original Midnight Motorist maybe was William Afton, driving drunk, but then on the other hand, if you go to Later That Night, I feel like it probably might be, well, Henry Emily, because due to the fact that, I don't think that Henry's technically drunk, but he was enraged with the loss of his own daughter. Because, don't forget, Henry did not just have one child, okay? Remember that. In the original Silver Eyes trilogy novels, he had two children, Sammy and Charlotte Emily. Now, as we know in the Silver Eyes trilogy, that Charlotte Emily is basically a robot. She had no idea that her original human body was dead at that time. Nor that she figured out that, her dad Henry was actually creating multiple versions of her based on different age growth. So remember that. Henry So remember that. Charlie was never the only child, okay? And also, remember what the whole line said in the Twisted Ones novel when Charlotte was fighting Springtrap? You will pay for what you have done to my brother Sammy. You took him away from me. But then Springtrap actually says back to her, he says back, I didn't take him away from you. I took you away from him. Which exactly replicates back in Five Nights at Freddy's 6 that Charlie was the one who got killed by William Afton, locked outside of Fredbear Friend's family diner, and the puppet just couldn't be able to get to her in time because William already made his kill. And maybe perhaps that mound of dirt that we see in later that night is probably perhaps, the burial of, where Charlie must have been buried away. But the soul obviously managed to move on inside the puppet. Either it could be that is where Sammy, as I always keep calling this kid, is actually escaping, or someone else is letting him out and actually going to Fredbear and Friends Family Diner due to what he saw. But it is hard to tell whether or not that is exactly what Sammy did see, unless it was someone else. Because as we do remember recalling that Sammy did see like someone getting spring-locked, more like a child perhaps, because you get to see the tufts of hair coming out of that suit in FNAF 4. And due to the fact with Henry being angry at his son for for opening the door, but then realizing that he has escaped, maybe it's because that he is very, very angry with the fact and his agony was being awakened by his own grief. In the graphic novels, you do actually get to see Henry smashing the very only ounce of bits of the Charlie robot that he was going to create, but smashed it all apart, and then William Afton stole it and made that her own daughter, basically turning her into Baby, aka Elizabeth Afton. Now, you may also notice someone here standing on the TV and saying that he is very upset today. Well, that I obviously can feel like that is Michael Afton. He's obviously wearing the exact same, like, grayish white t-shirt, just like how he's been bullying his brother for the last few times, even without the Foxy mask. Now, here's the thing about Michael Afton, and this is where things are about to get completely bizarre here. But you know how after all this time that we've been calling this kid Michael Afton, right? And this is basically his older brother. Well, this is the one thing I was kind of thinking to myself. And this is something that Matt Pat also talked about in one of his GT Live videos.
So, I mean, we know that Mike Afton, Michaels, I don't know if it's Mike Afton, well, we'll see. I wonder if Elizabeth is listed as Elizabeth Afton. I wonder if they didn't want to list Mike, because maybe he's not an Afton.
When he also talked about the character encyclopedia, Michael Afton was not there whatsoever. And it does make sense. And is Michael really considered to be Michael Afton? Is Michael even his name Mike or Michael? Is his name completely something else? Which I kind of feel like that's why I wanted to refer to the Evan name. Maybe Michael's name wasn't always Michael Afton. Maybe it never was Michael Afton. Maybe it was actually Evan, perhaps. But the thing about Michael Afton is because he was also a robot. But I've always had the impression, how and when did he ever become a robot? I mean, back in FNAF 4, when he was a teenager bullying his brother, was he even human in the first place? Was he always a robot? Was he basically built by William Afton, or was he built by Henry? And it kind of made me wonder to myself, is Michael Afton, like, when was the time that he actually became a robot? Did William Afton do something to Michael that, maybe he actually killed him and actually created him to turn back into a robot to do his bidding? But of course, that never happened because, he always disobeyed. He would always disobey William Afton. You see, when it comes to William Afton, if he was to be taking care of, the Henry Hamley household, I've always seen him as a stepfather. Or foster father. Because, in the Fazbear Frights books, Technically, there's been like a lot of stepfather business always going on in those stories, most of the time anyways. There's always been like, abusive stepfathers in the story, and people that are like adults or children back in the time, or adults that were children back at the time, that were so afraid of their stepfathers. And that always kind of felt like to me that, that's something that might have actually happened. And maybe William Afton was considered to be like a stepfather figure, perhaps, for the Emily household. But yeah, I just wanted to point that out, with William Afton being like a stepfather figure for the Emily family, but also due to the fact with, Michael Afton not being an Afton at all, maybe the name Evan might actually imply that his name might actually be Evan. Maybe perhaps it might be even Evan Emily, perhaps. I don't know, but let me know that one in the comments. Anyway, so we got that one out of the way, especially with Henry Emily being actually the orange guy, since due to the fact that Henry Emily is wearing orange. But what about the mother of the family? Well, I've also managed to pick up something here in this page in 217, just right after Henry Emily's page. You can actually see that you see Henry, and you get to see the wife of Henry Emily. The wife's name was actually called Emily, or Emily? Emily? Yeah, it sounds a bit weird. They almost made it sound exactly close to freaking Emily for the first name and the surname, which is kind of odd. But yeah, but the looks of things, as you can see here, this is apparently Henry's wife, Emily, or Emily, I guess. Just sorry if I'm butchering that name badly, but please let me know in the comments and give me the right pronunciation. But as you can see here, that Henry's wife here is actually in this picture here. Is a family photo. And by taking a look at this, you get to see Charlie Emily and Samuel Emily in the middle right here, as you can see. Now, if you notice that the wife actually has blonde hair in that photo, but the shape of the hair kind of clicks something a bit very familiar. Looking back into this video once again, you may notice this. Straight line over here, that's hair. That's actually long hair. Well, long-wise anyways. Yes, it's not too long. But it kind of seems like that hair is actually supposed to belong to a woman. So ladies and gentlemen, I have now might have just figured out that is the wife of Henry Emily. We're looking at the mother of the 3 children. Well, technically 2 children in this picture, but still, that's Charlie's and Sammy's mother. And just by looking at the shape of that hair in particular, that looks so close to the one that Emily's hair looks like. The wife shape of that hair. If I could just be able to, just draw that there for a quick second and coloring it blonde. And yeah, there you go. It looks exactly like the same hair shape back in the Fnaf world image that you see before you once you enter in Old Man Consequence's lake and going into eternal abyss until you see that photo. That has to be it. It has to be the 2 children, Sammy Emily and Charlotte Emily, and that has got to be the mother, Emily. But that wasn't all. I actually noticed to try to look into the earrings, and I wanted to check out on Ballora for just a quick second. You know how people have been saying that William Afton's wife was also considered to be the Ballora, but we just don't know the name. Most people say that the name of William Afton's wife is actually called Clara Afton, which is basically on the TV show that Michael Afton would usually watch, The Mortal and the Restless. Hopefully I got that name right. And technically speaking, both those characters actually have blonde hair. Well, Clara seems to have more of a ginger, blondish kind of hair, if that makes any sense. It's a bit more deeper than Emily's blonde hair. Also tried looking into the earrings as well, and guess what? There was no earrings. And the reason why I talk about these specific earrings, because with Emily's earrings, they are literally the exact same size as Ballora's. Yeah, take a look at this. If you notice with Ballora, she actually has the exact same earrings, just like Emily does, just at the bottom of her earlobes. And that kind of got me wondering very, very, very much. Could that technically be the soul of maybe Henry Emily's wife? Because I have a feeling that at some point in time, there must have been some sort of love relationship going on. There had to be like a love triangle between Henry Emily and William Afton, obviously trying to get the same woman. And it might have been perhaps Emily. And I get the feeling that William Afton might have been jealous at the time, and maybe... Why do I have a feeling that maybe, if it's possible, that William Afton might have actually went to go ahead and kill Emily, Henry's wife. And by the looks of things, like, that might have been the real wife of her dreams. The color of the earrings is, like, somewhat close. They're somewhat close of the earrings between Emily and Ballora. But it kind of makes me really do realize that it's possible that it has to be her. That the wife of Henry Emily is actually inside Ballora. Her soul is inside Ballora. But yet, however, why would William Afton go for Henry's wife? I mean, did the wife pass away instead, maybe? Who knows? We actually haven't never taken any consideration of, like, whose wife is who. But we obviously know that Emily is obviously Henry's wife. But what about William's wife? Did William actually kill his wife? But everyone says that, you know, Henry's wife was actually inside Ballora. But now I'm trying to connect a bit more dots that could make it a bit more clear, since due to the fact, one, William Afton could have been jealous of, you know, Henry actually having Emily instead. And then just like building her, like, you know, with the exact same earrings that she would normally wear, just like in this family photo here. Then, of course, we move on to, you know, William Afton being a stepfather, and mainly being a stepfather to Vanessa. Now, I won't go too much into that information at the moment. That is 100% going to be for a different video only. But I feel like I can now confirm that the wife could have actually... One of the wives was actually might have been Henry's wife, and maybe her soul might have actually gone into... Ballora. Unless if it is vice versa, because remember Ballora's quotes from Ultimate Custom Night.
I could hear you breathing. Admit it, you wanted to let me in.
It kind of suggests that, you know, why was William Afton shutting her out after all this time? And, you know, with Clara, his wife, or... Yeah, it's kind of weird. I mean, it could go 50-50 on this one as well. So let me know that one in the comments as well. Also, just quickly going back to Henry Emily being the orange guy in Fnaf 6. Let's not also forget to mention about the orange text that, you know, when he actually talks. And especially due to the fact that I feel like that he's also the one who's created the Fredbear plushie, and I think he might have been the one saying, "I will put you back together." That might actually be the case, I feel like, because due to the fact that, you know, since that the text may be slightly different compared to from FNAF 6 and FNAF 4, but it kind of does simulate that, you know, this was Henry Emily instead of William Afton at the time. And I feel like that Henry was going to actually build a version of Sammy Emily after the fact that when, you know, the older brother did put him in Fredbear's mouth and then had two missing children. But it's pretty obvious that I feel like that, you know, when Charlie was dead, Henry obviously tried to build a robotic version of her first before I believe he could even get to doing his youngest son, Sammy Emily. Actually, now that I think about it, because both Sammy Emily and Charlie Emily are actually twin siblings, actually. Now they gotta... so, also take note of that one. Also, you may even notice in the family photo here that, you know, they actually do kind of look alike with the same tough hair that is pointing down at the middle of their foreheads. Also, with the fact that the Henry in this picture here, apart from this version of Henry from the Silver Eyes trilogy novels, I mean, you can obviously also tell that Henry's hair in this one is super long, but much more longer than Emily's hair. But obviously, that is way too long to be part of that photo over here, which is in the Old Man Consequences Abyss picture. And also, that is way too short to have that, and the hair on this side is actually way too short. So it's pretty obvious that this hair from Emily is basically the right amount of hair to be matching the same as this picture in here. Just wanted to make a good recap on that one. Now, the most crucial evidence that I could ever possibly talk about that the Bite of 83 victim is also considered to be Sammy Emily and not Evan. Now, this is the 100% biggest part of evidence that I wanted to show you so freaking badly. Now, as you can see in page 217 on Henry's profile, as you remember the photo of, the Emily family being here, and you notice that Sammy Emily is in the middle of the photo. Well, take a look at this. If you notice in page 211, you may actually notice the crying child's profile, and at the very bottom page, that you get to see him crying, and obviously, and also whether that's Nightmare Fredbear or Nightmare behind him, but that's not the whole point, because looking at what I'm seeing here in this artwork here, you cannot possibly tell me that that is not a coincidence, because guess what? It is. Was Scott Cawthon actually trying to be able to lead us to this path at this point in time? Because I kind of feel like that he was intentionally doing this, and I don't think anyone has ever noticed. I mean, look at it. The exact same tuft of hairs at the middle of his forehead, the crying child and Sammy Emily, they're literally in the middle of the freaking photos, and they have the same brown hair. I mean, it's a bit brighter, but still, this to me, this is like the most obvious evidence that you could possibly get, and I feel like Scott Cawthon was trying to point this out with good intentions, if not the most obvious of intentions, to point out that this child here, the crying child in this photo, and flipping it to this page here, is that it is literally the same character. That this kid right over here in this profile picture is none other than the same kid in that family photo, but just a bit older. He's now a child. He's no longer a toddler. That is got to be 100% Sammy Emily. It shows it all. It literally shows it all. And I'm not worried about, like, the clothing at this point in time. I'm worried about the hair, the way the hair is positioned and all that kind of stuff. Like, you cannot possibly tell me that that's not the same character, because to me, it is. I feel like Scott Cawthon was actually trying to point out this entire time with the best intentions that he had to finally put this in the character encyclopedia. This was the only evidence I feel like he wanted us to see. And how come no one is talking about it, aside from myself? How come no one has noticed this? This is why I'm saying that this theory is the biggest theory I am making right now, because no one's talking about it. With every single bits of evidence that I have pointed out so far from the start to here at this point in time, this is why I believe that this kid right here is none other than Sammy Emily, the son of Henry Emily and Emily, along being the brother of Charlie Emily, okay? Now, I don't know, as I said before, about Michael Afton being maybe Evan Emily, perhaps. That's a whole other thing on its own. but whether or not he was actually a human before he got turned into a robot by either, William Afton, unless Henry Emily made Michael Afton, and maybe he called him Henry at the time, maybe. I don't know, but that's why I'm always thinking that maybe Evan, the name Evan itself, could be possibly used for somebody else, like Michael Afton. Because, as I said before, was Michael Afton ever a freaking robot? Was he ever a human? When was he turned into a robot? How did he get turned to a robot? Who built him? Who made him to become this way? I don't know. But that is why Evan was never was never clicking with me. But I've always felt like that this kid right here, the crying child from Fnaf 4, is considered to be Sammy Emily. Okay! Now that I've managed to finally put that all together, there's just one more thing I do want to also take into consideration. Remember the Chosen One theory that I made not too long ago about that crying child in the Shadow Bonnie minigame? Now, first off, as I said before, that it was I prefer that crying child in the Shadow Bonnie minigame was actually Cassidy and not Sammy, because I thought that it was actually, the remaining agony and dark remnant of Cassidy was still there because it didn't satisfy her. But I feel like with Sammy Emily being as the child in one of the happiest days puts the Golden Freddy or even Fredbear mask on, was actually, managed to finally get his happiest day, but not Cassidy. That is just something I do want to point out. Aside from the fact that, in the crying child profile, that, the crying child has been known to be in FNAF 4, but not in FNAF 3. Still don't understand why that is. Was that intentional? Was that unintentional? Let me know that one in the comments down below. I'm not too sure still, but so let me know your thoughts down there. Now, before I actually really do finish everything up. So now that I finally mentioned about, why I think that Sammy Emily is considered to be the Byte 83 victim with everything that I've said, what about the animatronics that he actually does possess? Well, it's pretty obvious. We all know that Sammy himself also controls the Golden Freddy suit, aka Fredbear, because like as I said, Fredbear and Golden Freddy are the same character. They're basically the same animatronic shell model for their endoskeleton. And even sometimes in the Ultimate Custom Night, we actually do get to see Fredbear popping up out of nowhere whenever Golden Freddy's around if you put him to the setting 1 and if you use the death coin on him. That kind of basically might suggest that, Sammy Emily is basically defending Cassidy. And don't forget about Fredbear's lines, these are not the right souls, they are coming soon. There's more fantasy and fun where that came from, or from where I came from. I feel like that makes more sense because due to the fact he probably might have, because Sammy might have had like a good life until after when he got traumatized and everything that has happened in the past. But yeah, basically, it's pretty obvious that, they both control the same animatronic suit. But when it comes to other variations, such as like, Night Bear, which is like, the classic version of Nightmare in FNAF 4, but like, no, unnightmarish, I guess. Which is technically the dark half of Fredbear himself. And don't forget about Shadow Freddy. Shadow Freddy is also the dark version of Golden Freddy as well. You may also take a look at this chart that I actually have pointed out here from this video again, if you want to have a look at it. But this is basically a chart of like, the forms of Golden Freddy / Fredbear, how they taken form and how they taken place, and how each of their forms work. I certainly do feel like that since that Nightmare Fredbear has a dark version of himself, which is Nightmare, the same should probably mean for Sammy, since the fact that he is basically Fredbear aside from Golden Freddy, but his own is basically Fredbear, and he should also have a dark side of that as well, which is Night Bear. Golden Freddy, we obviously know, is basically the dark half which is Shadow Freddy. The versions of light and darkness between these two characters are very interesting and very fascinating to me, and I kind of like it. Kinds of actually reminds me of Sun and Moon Betrayed and that kind of version as well, which, speaking of which, it is actually a lot like that actually. Because you know, Sun and Moon, Sun works in the light, Moon works in the dark. Well, when you have eclipse, they kind of work with both. And it kind of gets the feeling like, what happens if, you know, if they both somehow combine and maybe their appearance is way different, unlike the other two. Can you imagine that? Like, that would be actually pretty cool and fascinating. And that's just a little bit of something that I just wanted to, you know, just for funsies. But it could possibly happen. It's a possibility. I'm just letting it open. Yes, but I do feel like that Sammy as Fredbear would definitely have a role if he had a dark side, which is Nightbear. Definitely. Just like how Cassidy does with Golden Freddy as Shadow Freddy. But don't forget that Shadow Freddy also is one of the past employees from Fredbear and Friends Family Diner, and he got spring-locked in a Fredbear suit. That's why he's also considered to be Shadow Freddy as well. But they kind of do take place as the roles because they have the same roles in FNAF 2. They all want to, you know, have vengeance and all that. Shadow Freddy wanted to help Golden Freddy and the other 4 characters. It was just basically trying to help them out. It didn't really technically, you know, give Cassidy the satisfaction, but it did actually have for Sammy. And yeah, I feel like that's actually all that I just needed to drop out just for that little stuff in extra. Also, just for another thing in extra, I just wanted to point out, someone actually posted this on subreddit, and someone actually agreed that maybe they are thinking that Sammy Emily is actually the Bite of 83 victim. So thank heavens I'm not the only one. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you have made it through all the way, because if you have, congratulations. But that was the reason why I feel like that the name of the Bite of 83 victim is considered to be Sammy Emily. So let me know what all of you guys think about this theory in particular. Do you really do agree with me that, you know, Sammy Emily is considered to be the Bite of 83 victim in FNAF 4? There's so many, you know, evidence that Scott Cawthon, I feel like, has intentionally put for us to actually go into the right direction. Like I've said, I've been sticking to my guns ever since when I've read the Silver Eyes trilogy novels. They have given me, like, so much confidence that I felt like that this has to be it. This was the right way to go. What do you also think about your thoughts are based on the family members such as Emily, and also Clara Afton, Michael having to be his real name to be Evan Emily perhaps? Was he a robot? When did he become a robot? How was he going to be turned into a robot during its dislocation? Let me know about that as well. But yeah, I definitely 100% believe that I have solved the name of the Bite of 83 victim, which is Sammy Emily. I know I'm repeating myself, but this is I feel like I'm very confident. This is huge for me. I never thought I'd make it this far into making this video, because I've been planning to do this so badly for a long time now. If none of this convinces anybody at all, at least like a lot of people, then I don't know what will. So I really do appreciate you guys for being there, for watching this video in particular, because I've been planning for this for years. I've been waiting up until this very point. So yeah, say again, thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe to this if you have not already, and click on the notification bell to never miss a video. And as always, my name is Mad Dog, and let your days be mad and rad!